Hey everybody, welcome to The Huddle. We're in a slightly different location than we're normally filming from. We're in a field out in eastern Arkansas, just outside of the town of Jonesboro, and I have with me Melody Richard, who's one of our general merchandise managers who oversees a big part of the grocery business. And that's what we're here to talk about today is rice. So Melody, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks for having us. It's amazing to be sitting here in the middle of a rice field in Arkansas, where I didn't know until recently that Arkansas is the #1 producer of rice in the whole United States.
Yeah, over 2/3 of the rice that is produced for the U.S. comes out of this part of Arkansas, which is the Mississippi River Delta. We're just up on a plateau here. There's a ridge line behind us where you really get into the Delta, but a lot of fields around us. I grew up around farms, not this part of the state, but the central part of the state. My grandfather had some property on the Arkansas River. He was a cattle farmer, he was a poultry farmer, lots of other things. One thing I learned about running farms when I was a kid is you're opportunistic. Based on what the almanac says, the weather says, what's going on, where the yields are.
And what your grandfather said.
And what he said, and he decided. And so every morning at 4 or 5, we would wake up, which I'm not much of a morning person, but it was always the time of day to get up and drive the fence lines. And I loved driving around when I was 9 or 10 years old. It's a lot of fun. So what we saw today, what we heard today is a lifestyle. And being part of an agriculture community is different than other types of economies, communities. It's 7 days a week. What I learned as a kid, that cattle don't take Sundays off. They break the fence on Sunday, they break it on Saturday, they just do what they do. And predators come in the field, and then heat of the summer, you're worried about irrigation and other things. And what's exciting about this place is a part of a big part of the Walmart offering. 2/3 of what we sell is either made, grown, or manufactured in the United States. Said a minute ago, about 70% of the rice that is produced in the United States is produced here. But what's really different about what you see here compared to the farms I was around when I was a kid is technology.
Yeah.
Technology, the use of data, which makes it much more productive, makes it more sustainable. And as stated with our goal, we want to really be working in an environment that's regenerative, which means putting things back the way we found them without any sort of impact. And that's what you're here to, today to talk about. So, love to hear your thoughts on that and talk about the business.
Yeah, I'm super excited about the work that the teams are doing in this space, that it's become a part of everything we all do, is that we're looking for opportunities to leave the planet better than we found it. I think Doug always says, leave the campsite better than you found it. And so the team several years ago came to the realization that the aquifer here in Arkansas is about the same place that California and Texas were 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. And today, in what they used to call the Texas Rice Belt, they can't grow rice anymore because the aquifer has started to dry up. And so we're at a critical point in Arkansas to protect the economy and to protect the livelihood of the community and the farmers and the resiliency and the great products that we offer for great prices on the shelves. We're at a critical juncture that we can play a role in helping create resiliency across the supply chain.
And so, like we said, technology is a big part of what we see here today that's making such a difference. And who's behind it all?
Yeah, so we've got an incredible partner by the name of Indigo, who is a technology partner that's using data and science. They have data scientists here on the ground. We heard from the farmer, Dustin, this morning how important it was that they're embedded in the community. And Indigo is working closely with Walmart, with the farmers, and with ensuring that we're and with the millers. So it's a collective approach across the organization to be able to make these place-based initiatives, like an initiative where we're going to regenerate rice the way we're doing here in Arkansas. Takes a lot of different people. And the technology, whether it's drones, we saw sensors that are being used now, farmers didn't have that before. And so Indigo's coming in, but they're not only bringing the technology, but they're also bringing the data scientists and the data support so that they can help the farmer know when to actually put water into the field versus just flooding it all the time, which you don't have to do to grow rice.
Mm-hmm. And so much of farming is learned generation to generation. Mm-hmm. And most people think that rice fields need to be flooded, and you would assume that's for the benefit of the rice. It's actually not for the rice. Yeah. It's actually to keep competing vegetation down. So what the technology and the sensors enable the farmers to do, along with Indigo support, is to flood the field, maintain it for a certain amount of time, let it basically get to the point of drying up, which helps with other impacts like methane release. But at the same time, as the water level comes down, then you reflood it, which saves cost. It saves cost in diesel fuel and pumping and water, uses less water and lets more return back into the ground.
And we heard Dustin talk today about saving time. He's not having to spend as much time out on the field away from his family because he's able to use the technology to determine when he needs to be in the field, which I think is really cool.
It is. And you know, one of the other aspects that you have to think about is why would a farmer change what they've always done? So you have to have the right measures to keep performance indicators in place. And what else would you think about as farmers want to think about this transition from the way they farmed for potentially generations to trying to do it differently?
Yeah, one of the things I think that's really important to them is the commitment from a retailer like Walmart. Like they know that we are committed to the resources of the planet, and that we want to find solutions with them so they don't feel like they're on an island. The collection of all of the leaders in the space are able to bring support to the farmer so that they recognize that it's not a one and done. We're going to come here 1 year and then we're not going to be back the next year. This is a long-term plan that we're working with them. We also are really clear and certainly know that we're going to make some mistakes along the way. And that we're going to learn from those mistakes together. And so it's been about trust. It's about building relationships. Being here today in the farm with Dustin and the team here, it builds trust for a long-term approach to this, so that the farmer knows there may be some upfront costs. There may be upfront costs for us as merchants, but we're going to do this together to be able to sustain the planet that we live in.
Yeah, part of what we all do is we learn from mistakes, and I think of mistakes as progress, and progress is, in many cases, way better than perfection, because if you wait for perfection, you don't learn anything in the way. So I think it's a really important part of learning. One of the hard things to get your head around is when you save water, is quantifying how much it is. It's at this point literally billions of gallons. You have a much bigger target, but if you were going to try to contextualize how much water savings does this really add up to in the next 4 or 5 years, how would you explain that?
Let me start with the bag I'm holding in my hand. So that's 2 pounds of rice. And this 2 pounds of rice requires 400 gallons. Think about your milk jug, like 400 gallons of water just to make this bag of rice. And so as we think about, we sell 35 million bags of rice at Walmart a year of great value rice, which is about 8,000 bags per store. That's a lot of water. But we have a line of sight to have 100% of our great value rice made with regenerative farming, which will save over 7 billion gallons of water annually. And I think as we think about, that's just mind blowing, right? Like 7 billion gallons is actually the amount of water that 40 million people would consume in a year.
40 million.
40 million.
Yeah.
So we're going to save that by the partnerships that we're having in Arkansas today, and that we're going to continue to scale and grow. We're going to be able to save that for the planet.
It's really inspiring, really encouraging. Great to be here also. For me, it feels like it's full circle. I remember my grandfather, when I was really young on the farm, saying he just wanted a job one day where he got to be inside a lot, and I get to be inside a lot, and I really get pleasure of being outside all the time. So something about us, we always want the opposite of what we currently have, but this has been a lot of fun. It's great to see, and it's making a real difference. So thank you to you and your team. And as you see the product, this is the Great Value 2 pound. Just an example of how this all comes together at the end, and it makes a real difference. So
we sell 35 million bags of this a year, 8,000 bags per store. So each and every associate that's working with the great value rice, you're making a difference each and every day.
So thanks for the time, Melody. So this has been great. Good to be here, and look forward to seeing all of our associates out the stores.
Yeah, thank you.